It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
I mean, that was really a tough week for us, just physically and mentally on all of our players. But, you know, Asia wanted to win all of them. And when you want to win all of them, it adds a little bit more pressure to it, especially when I don't think our team played our best basketball. I think Asia's relying more on her teammates to play the way they played over the weekend. And if we can hold serve and she can do what she does, I think it's a great combination.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network here on a Thursday night. Off and running with the main draw of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Games winding down as we speak. We'll update the scoreboard for you in just a moment. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes. You heard from Dawn Staley there at the outset. The USC women getting ready for their first and second round games in Columbia beginning tomorrow night. We have got a jam-packed show for you tonight. More from Coach Staley coming up in a little bit. Monty Lee live on the program at the bottom of the hour. Mark Kingston after Coach Lee from earlier today talking about his first SEC series with the Florida Gators coming to Columbia. So you got Clemson, the number one team in the RPI now by the NCAA at 16-1, and then you've got the defending national champs coming to Columbia. We'll have two defending national champs in Columbia this weekend, the USC women's basketball team and the Florida baseball team. Give and go with Roper and Lucas a little bit after 7 o'clock. And the money coach, Fran Halloran, I know he's got some insightful comments about this NCAA basketball tournament and the money crossing bank accounts all across the country as it relates to the tournament. So we have got a lot to tell you about and a lot going on. Clemson and Charleston and San Diego practicing this afternoon. They'll be meeting with the media here. Remember, they're 3 hours behind us. So they'll be meeting with the media in just a little bit, and we hope to bring you some of that later on in the program, time permitting and going smoothly. Let's update the scoreboard real quick. We'll talk about our brackets and then move on with things. A game just wrapping up. Ohio State defeats South Dakota State 81-73. It was 43-43 at halftime. Mm-hmm. And Ohio State wins it by 8. Ongoing, midway through the second half, Seton Hall up on top of NC State 65-61. Seton Hall's led pretty much the entire way.
They have. NC State's kind of been back and forth between the 4 and 8 point margin here. They're trying to go to the free throw line here to get it within a one-possession game with a little bit over 10 minutes to play in the second half.
And by the way, in that Jackrabbit game with the Buckeyes, that game was tied with less than 2 minutes to go, and Ohio State just pulled out late.
Rhode Island knocks off Oklahoma in Pittsburgh, 83-78. Tennessee,
best game of the day so far.
Tennessee, very impressive over Wright State. Did I say overtime in that game? Overtime in that Rhode Island-Oklahoma game, 83-78. Tennessee, very impressive, 73-47 over Wright State. Gonzaga beat UNC Greensboro, 68-64. Duke looking good over Iona, 89-67 in Pittsburgh. Kansas had a little bit of a tussle with Penn until about midway through the second half. Jayhawks pulled away, 76-60. Miami goes down to Loyola Chicago. That's an 11 over a 6, 64-62. Anybody call that?
No.
Did not. The Ramblers are kind of stingy, I would say. They're a team that is kind of hangs around with you, and I think that they did that enough with that Miami game, and I think, with Miami, they really blew some opportunities down the stretch.
Huell had a struggle down the stretch. 2 big turnovers when he had the ball right under the basket to score, and that left the door wide open for that winning 3 by Loyola.
That was the first one I didn't hit, Corn. The first one I didn't hit.
All right, coming up tonight, as far as some of the local teams go, Kentucky plays Davidson. Kentucky's only a 4.5-point favorite. That's in Boise at 7:10. We've got Alabama, Virginia Tech, an SEC-ACC matchup there. Tech, a 2.5-point favorite. That game will be in Pittsburgh. And Florida and St. Bonaventure around 10 o'clock out in Dallas Florida a 6-point favorite there. So there you go with what's coming up involving SEC, AC teams and others, and the scoreboard to date. So, yeah, we all take a little ding here and there in the bracket in the opening day. I was hoping to sneak through with my one surprise, what I hope would be a surprise, was South Dakota. That was going to be my upset pick of the first day, but it did not come to fruition for me. It happens. It happens in picking the brackets. So you were over with USC women today and Dawn Staley, and they certainly sound confident that they can get through North Carolina A&T, the old one game at a time thing, take care of business there, and then get on to the next game on Sunday.
She's certainly gotten past the whole disappointment of being placed in the Albany Regional. They're focused on this game and really focused on trying to continue that stretch of what she called their best basketball of the season with the 3 wins in Nashville in the SEC tournament, culminating with the 3rd consecutive SEC tournament championship. I mean, not a lot to really look at with this North Carolina A&T team. I hate to think that Dawn Staley and them are looking ahead, but I mean, again, it's not necessarily a team that's up to snuff. But anybody can obviously beat you in this month of March. The one thing, though, that she did say that could give them pause, or at least has them at least super focused, is that if you remember last year in the second round, they struggled a little bit to get themselves out of Columbia. So by no means is this something where they're just completely zoned in on their next opponent beyond them, which would be either Virginia or California.
And of course, that was another Pac-12 team. That was Arizona State that gave them all kind of problems last year. This particular team this year, I think probably from a physical standpoint, but in my mind, more from a mental standpoint, when they hit that gauntlet, when they got Spann injured, their best 3-point shooter, and then had to run through UConn and then go to Starkville, and they took some real good shots in those 2 games, and they came out on the other side. I think probably that's when mentally this team recovered.
And you'll hear me ask about that because of the fact that the draining of that week is going to be the same kind of test that they'll have to go through, not just this week, but also next week, especially once they get to the regional semi and regional final rounds.
All right. Clemson had a pro day today after having their major scrimmage yesterday. So the former Tigers, hoping to make it to the NFL, went and did their thing. From what I've read, Ray McLeod looked pretty good running and catching the football. Deion McCain had a couple of drops. Neither McLeod or Kane ran the 40. I think they stood on their times from the NFL Combine. Jay Guillermo, some video of him out there repping, was it 225 pounds, about 32 times I think he was doing. Tyrone Crowder doing the same thing. So, all you got to do is impress one team. Get one team to like you, and you'll get picked, maybe not as early as you had hoped or maybe sooner than you expected. All you got to do is get one team to like you.
I have more patience for the pro days than I do the overall combine because the pro day allows you some of those other players who might not be at the combine level to try and get some exposure. But as I like to say, there's no better evaluation than what you see from the film on Saturday, not guys running around in titles.
I would agree. I would think that your body of work, what you do in the season,
it's like the one thing you and I see eye to eye on ever. It's like the one thing that you and I are so dispassionately agreement on. It's crazy.
I think we agree on more things than you give us credit for.
Yeah.
Okay. We had one disagreement the other day, but I was right, you were wrong, but that's okay.
You were not right.
The world,
fine,
that's how the world spins. I mean, somebody's got to be right and somebody's got to be wrong.
But the pro day and the combine, the whole thing, it makes me.
I never have understood how. Yeah, I never have
sick.
Really understood how they put so much weight on that versus how a
player the last thing
actually performed in his career.
It's SYA. Because you'll go back to somebody, well, look, he ran this, he ran that. Yeah, but we're talking about what does he do in a uniform? Some guys, let's face it, we've seen linemen who look perfect. They look like, Tarzan. And then you get a guy who's got this flubby body and he blocks better than that guy that you thought was all.
Last I checked, they played this game with pads and helmets, not in tight clothes and Under Armour.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to jump into things when we come back from the break. First up will be Dawn Staley. Get you some quick thoughts from her as she looks ahead to another run. She hopes for a national championship. The road ahead, in all likelihood, will not be easy considering where they will have to go and who they will probably face if they get out of Columbia. It's coming up next.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
It's a huge day in sports, of course, when the NCAA tournament main draw gets underway, and it's a huge night here on Sports Talk to match the huge day in sports. Glad you're with us. If you've turned away from the basketball for a little bit to catch your breath, you have tuned into Sports Talk. We welcome you. You've joined us from other areas as well. Glad to have you turning over to us here on Sports Talk. 71-66 Seton Hall, leading NC State, 7:45 to play in that one. And coming up in just a moment, we're going to hear from USC's Dawn Staley. We remind you, as always, to check out foundersfcu.com. Learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. A couple of quick notes. USC announced today some future football games with a bit of a twist. The Gamecocks and Appalachian State have agreed to a 3-year football series for 2019 in Columbia, for 2025 in Boone, and then a game in Columbia in 2027.
How much you won't bet that game in Boone doesn't get played? I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, the contracts have been signed. I don't know. You have to pay a penalty if you break a contract.
I didn't think they'll play
what was a Big 5 team went somewhere to play a smaller Division I school somewhere? I can't think what team did it. You know? Maybe it's going to be a combination, go to the game and ski trip.
In Boone?
Depending on what
it is scheduled for September 20th.
Oh, shoot. I thought it probably was the late in the year.
2025, that would be 8 more football seasons counting this coming year. That'll be about the 42nd year of Sports Talk in 2025. Also, I know you're looking forward to that.
I'm not. I can't flip you for that game.
Non-conference home games with Troy in 2021 and Georgia State in 2022. Okay, so put that on your calendar. Former Clemson quarterback Cole Stout's been hired as the new quarterbacks coach at Morehouse State. So he's moving up the old ladder in terms of
Morehead State
football coaching. Georgia Tech sophomore Josh Agogi has declared himself eligible for the draft. He will not retain an agent. Thus, he'll preserve his athletic eligibility. 6'4" guard, who I thought was very good in the games I saw him against Clemson. Very, very talented. And I think that pretty much has it locally. I do want to mention that Tiger gave everybody a huge thrill today. Did you see the 71-foot putt he rolled in to take the lead at the Arnie tournament temporarily? He took the lead. He finished at on the day 4 under 68, which has him up on the leaderboard. Your leader is Henrik Stenson at 8 under 64. But Tiger, a 68, and gave everybody a huge thrill with a 71-foot putt that went right in the middle of the cup.
That's long.
And he just gave it a very cool little smile after it dropped. Rory McIlroy's at 3 under. Ernie Els is at 3 under. William McGurt's at 2 under. Kyle Stanley's at 1 under. Lucas Glover is on the course even. Scott Brown is +1 on the course. Kevin Kisner, Ben Martin, all in at 2 under, and Arnie's grandson, Sam Saunders, a 5 over 77. Of course, Sammy, former Clemson Tiger. And Doc Redmond is playing in this tournament as well. I got to check and see what he is doing. Have you seen his score?
I have not, but I did remember when you said that my mind was triggered with that, just because he also gets to play the Masters as well.
1 over through 16.
Not bad.
Today for Doc.
That's not
so. U.S. amateur champ. All right, so basketball in Columbia. You know, I was just thinking as I was driving in and listening to some of the games, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, this time next year we're going to have this in Columbia.
Should be nice.
They'll be saying, okay, John Schmeitzel, let's go back to you at Colonial Life Arena in Columbia and pick up the call in the second half of Loyola Marymount against Wake Forest, whatever it's going to be, whatever pairing there'll be in Columbia. You know, we're going to have all kinds of teams from all over the country.
It'll be very nice.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun for the city of Columbia, so get ready for it.
That building is very primed to host an NCAA tournament. I'm surprised it's taken this long to get something here, at least as far as that goes, but it's a good thing.
Well, you had to wait for the boycott to end a couple of years ago. And then all that sort of opened up and everything came back in a hurry.
Right.
But you were over there today to get the view from Dawn Staley's perspective.
South Carolina tomorrow night around 7:30. Its first NCAA tournament game against North Carolina A&T.
It's great to get things started, especially in our home arena. We got some great programs here. That's probably their first time being in Columbia. So I know we'll show them a great time in North Carolina A&T, Cal, and Virginia. So looking forward to having a great first and second round.
What did the 3-day process in Nashville do for your team? Do you think your team kind of hit a different gear, especially once they got Asia back?
I think it was extra focus because we weren't going to have Asia, in the beginning is what they were telling us. So we prepped that entire week, knowing that we would probably be without her services. So everybody was locked in, and then we got, the nod that she was able to play. I think she was just bonus on, where we were from a mentality standpoint and, wanting to win another SEC tournament championship.
North Carolina A&T, how much film have you gotten to see of them, and what do you think of them as an opponent for the first round?
I've seen a lot of film on them, and they are a pretty well coached basketball team. You can see, some of the definitive things that they like to do from a perimeter and a post standpoint. They pressure in the half court. And, we got to play. It's not going to be just because, there's a 2 by our name and a 15 by theirs. That means nothing. It means nothing to them. It shouldn't mean anything to us because we can't take anybody lightly. And if I could draw on, our experiences last year, we had a tough second round game. So, if that's an eye opener for us, we don't want to rest on our laurels to think that is an automatic win because we're at home. But they are really a very disciplined, well-coached basketball team.
Dawn, you said something during the stretch where you played Mississippi State, UConn, and Missouri, where Asia was kind of shouldering a lot of the load and she was kind of feeling that pressure. How has she adapted since that point, and do you think that she's kind of gotten more comfortable sharing that role?
That was really a tough week for us, just physically and mentally on all of our players. But, Asia, you wanted to win all of them. And when you want to win all of them, it adds a little bit more pressure to it, especially when I don't think our team played our best basketball, at Mississippi State or here when we play UConn. And then, playing Missouri right before that is just emotionally, it was just an incredibly draining week. You saw, I think Asia's relying more on her teammates to play the way they played over the weekend. And if we can hold serve and she can do what she does, I think it's a great combination. It's a combination in which we can have some success in the NCAA tournament.
The separation between the haves and the have-nots in women's basketball is huge.
Larger than anything else in college athletics.
Yeah, it really is. There's not much balance. The elite teams are so much better than the rest, and then among the elite of the elite are so much better than the rest of the elite.
Admittedly, I did watch a little bit of North Carolina A&T on film, and again, I say this is
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Why the hell would you do that?
It's because I was, you
must have been really bored.
I'm going to the game.
Why? They've got as much chance of winning that game as I do of winning the lottery.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I did it for my own edification to make sure, because again, like you said, there's very good women's basketball, very good women's college basketball, and then there's everybody else. I just did it for my own visual confirmation to make sure that North Carolina A&T is in that everybody else category, and guess what?
They are.
They are.
Well, the difference.
What? I'm covering the game tomorrow.
Listen,
do you not want?
I'm impressed that you are prepared.
Do you not want somebody who is there, who's prepared?
Who was the leading scorer for the North Carolina A&T women?
I have no clue.
Well, the difference in the women's game is if you got
played by women.
If you got women who are 6'3" or taller and athletic, those are where they're going to the main school.
Yes.
Because I think the guard play is pretty much the same.
The women are getting taller and taller in women's basketball.
But the big Asia Wilson is the prototype right now, 6'5" and can handle.
It's a contrast in the men's game where guard play is efficient. You really need that post presence in the women's game instead.
Okay, Monty Lee coming up next. All right, NC State doing its best to mess up a bunch of brackets. I don't know, a 9 seed, they are an 8 seed for Seton Hall. I imagine a lot of people around here, like me, picking the more familiar NC State team over Seton Hall. But right now, the Pirates getting it done, 65-60. Have you seen an updated score? 65-60, last score I've got.
Yeah, it is 82-75 with 3 minutes to go.
Oh, that thing's advanced then. Okay, I need to refresh my page. 81-73, and you had 82-75, 3:06 to go. Seton Hall, both teams are 21-11. 82-75, Seton Hall leading NC State at this point. We are attempting to line up Monty Lee here on the phone. We have not reached him yet for a live interview here at the bottom of the hour, 6:30, 6:34 now. So we'll keep trying to get him on here in just a moment and get his thoughts about the Tigers' upcoming ACC Series number 2 against NC State. Always a big series. The Tigers go into this week number 1 in the NCAA baseball RPI. Coastal is 65th. Charleston is 83rd. USC 127, largely because they haven't played any SEC teams yet, and they've only played Clemson of any team that has any RPI value and lost 2 out of 3 there.
I say that the problem is they haven't played anybody and they haven't taken care of business in the places where they've needed to take care of business.
Well, 5 losses is a lot. 3 of them to nondescript teams, which will not help you down the road. But they got to make up for it starting this weekend against a Florida team that comes in with 3 losses, 1 to Miami and 2 to Central Florida. Central Florida immediately declared itself the national champion after taking 2 games from the Gators. And but Florida is very talented. They've got plenty of parts back from last year's team. In fact, at this stage, going into SEC play compared to last year, their offensive numbers are across the board up from last year. Their pitching, of course, remains outstanding. And what a matchup tomorrow night with Hill going against Singer.
That's going to be big.
That'll be a big, big showdown. A lot of scouts should be on hand for that.
The thing about Adam Hill is that I think that one inning earlier in the season really was kind of something. We looked at it and we were like, oh my goodness, it was eye-opening, the fact that they had that bad outing and the bad stuff that came out after that inning. But he, since that point, has really kind of settled down and settled in. I mean, he had the 2 back-to-back 14 strikeout performances, including the one against Clemson that led to South Carolina's only win of the series. And it's just he's a guy who you wonder about his pitch count. You wonder about his pitch count as well, as far as that goes, just because of the fact that he's a guy who's a heavy strikeout guy who obviously can't necessarily get deep into games if that pitch count runs high. Well,
it's imperative that he pitch well tomorrow night and get a win for South Carolina if they're going to win the series. They need to get off to a good start. This is at home. You'd love to go into Saturday with a chance to win the series, especially when you don't know who your starting pitcher is going to be on Sunday. And they're closing by committee. So, South Carolina's in a little bit of a delicate situation from that standpoint. Going into SEC play. They do feel better now about the top of their lineup offensively. Noah Campbell has started to really hit at the top of the lineup and give them not only a punch at the plate, but also the ability to steal a base, go from first to third, things of that nature. So he can be a real spark for them at the top of the order. They're a little bit more upbeat about Cortez as well, who has struggled, but for most of the season, but they kind of feel like he might be starting to come on. Mark Kingston, we were over there today for his press conference at USC previewing the series with Florida. He's gone through some first at USC in his first year, his first game, which unfortunately for him he lost, his first series with Clemson, which unfortunately he lost. So now he gets a chance to get a first SEC series win. It's going to be tough against Florida, but he's looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think if you're a pro scout tomorrow night, this is the place to be. You have 2 of the top pitching prospects in the country that will be here in Founders Park. So I would anticipate a great scouting presence in our ballpark tomorrow night. And I just think competitors love being on that stage. I think a couple weeks ago when Adam was here against Clemson, that was a huge stage, a lot of attention on that series, and you saw how he rose to the occasion. I anticipate him having the same approach tomorrow night. You're going to have 2 great pitchers going at it. It's going to be entertaining for fans, for media, for scouts. I anticipate a great ball game.
Mark, what can going up against the reigning national champion really do for your team?
Well, it's a great test. Obviously, they're ranked in most polls 1 or 2 right now, so it's a complete team. We've scouted them. Obviously, I think their offense is better this year than it was last year. Their pitching rotation has potentially 3 first-rounders in it, so it's a great test. Whether we win or lose, it's not the end of the season. It's not make or break. So we're going to attack each game, trying to go 1-0 each day, like we always do. But I think it'll be 2 teams that are getting after it, and we're going to be prepared and ready to go.
Noah's hitting about 421 over the last 5 games, 3 extra base hits, handful of stolen bases as well. Just how unique of a player is he, especially at the college game, with what he can do for you guys?
He's a nice speed and power package, and obviously his speed has played more so far than the power, but I think the power, as he continues to grow as a hitter, will show up as well, because he does have 100+ exit velocity. He can hit the ball out of the ballpark. He's just a dynamic player. He's a guy we're very lucky to have. I love coaching the kid. And he helps you win games. And on top of that, he's a 4.0 student. So he's everything you look for in a player. And I think he'll only continue to get better because he works very hard. He's very smart. And those are the kind of players that, when you're that talented, you work that hard, and you're very intelligent, those are the guys that really have great careers.
Mark, y'all have obviously made a lot of progress in the last 5 games with runners in scoring positions and getting that key hit. How confident are you can carry that over into the Florida series?
Well, obviously, their pitching's a great challenge, and having faced them twice last year when I was at South Florida, you have an idea what they're going to do when you get runners in scoring position. So you just have to be prepared for it, and being prepared for it and actually executing the at-bat can be 2 different things. So we'll be prepared. But it's a great challenge. These guys are potential first-round picks for a reason. They have great stuff. So it's up to us to make sure that we have a plan, we have an approach, and then once that game starts, you've got to execute.
You touched on this earlier, saying that you feel like Florida's better offensively. How have they changed from last year? I know you're familiar with the program.
Yeah.
How are they better offensively, and how has this team changed from?
Just looking at the stats, across the board, their average is up, their power is up. It just looks like players have improved. Schwartz is having the kind of year again like he had earlier in his career. You have guys that are getting better. They're evolving as players, and so just all around their offense it's more productive. There's more power there, and they're stealing bases as well. So it's an all has evolved.
Mark Kingston, who, by the way, is 1-8 all time against the Gators.
Well, that's encouraging.
Well, I was at South Florida, and they played Florida last year. South Florida did in the Gainesville Regional second round and got beat. I think it was 5-1. Then lost to Bethune-Cookman the next game to be eliminated from that regional. So for him, it's not a personal thing with him. I'm sure he would love to get some wins against Florida. The all-time series with the 2 teams, 45-44 in favor of USC, but the Gators have won 15 of the last 20. So it's time for South Carolina to break through and see if they can. This would be a statement weekend for South Carolina baseball. They need a statement weekend. You go back to last year, and they haven't won a weekend series against an SEC team since like the first weekend of last year, I think. Mm-hmm. My memory serves me right. So they would win a game a weekend. I don't know if they were swept. I have to go back and look. But my point is, they haven't won a SEC weekend series in a long time. And this would be be a difficult weekend, but it'd be a great time to do it.
It was a weird year for South Carolina. They struggled in the regular season, and then for the first time in a long time made a run in the SEC tournament when usually they're just, 2 at barbecue.
Tell me about it. I took, one pair of underwear.
There you go.
That I wore for 5 days. They kept winning.
That's
got a little rough on Friday.
They don't have Walmarts in
Hoover?
By Saturday afternoon, I was pretty chafed.
But then those games they stole from Florida in the College World Series, especially getting those guys thrown out at the plate. Yeah, sometimes karma shifts the other direction.
We do have Mr. Monty Lee coming up next.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Finish off NC State 91-83, 35 seconds to go in that one. And we excuse Monty Lee for missing our prearranged gathering a few minutes ago. He was busy checking his brackets just to see how much damage has been done. How you holding up so far?
Well, I think I've got about as good a chance if my 13-year-old filled out my bracket as I did. So
yeah,
I don't. Yeah, I that's the most unpredictable thing in the world, I think. So I know it's a lot of fun for people who fill out brackets every year, but I learned years ago that that do you a whole lot of good.
That's right. That's right. And being a college coach, you really can't participate in the real fun side of it, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And you're
That's
busy
exactly
right now because your team is 16-1. You're up on top of the ACC standings after one weekend. You're number one in the NCAA RPI this week. Life is good around Doug Kingsmore Stadium.
Well, it is right now. I mean, that's for sure. And we're always very cautiously optimistic. I mean, we've played 17 games and played really good baseball up to this point, but we've got a heck of a test this weekend in NC State, who is a top 10 team in some of the polls, and they're coming in here at 15-3, and they're hitting 341 as a team. With an ERA just over 3, so they've got a great club, and we're going to be tested this weekend for sure.
But you said after your game the other night, your pitching has been a very pleasant surprise. Hennessy, Crawford, Higginbotham, getting it done to this point. You got to feel like there's a lot of confidence among those three, and in your bullpen going into this weekend.
Well, we do. I mean, we do. We feel like when we turn the ball over to our bullpen that it's been a strength of ours up to this point. It's amazing. In 17 games, we've pitched 17 different guys. So we've been able to spread the wealth a little bit and give guys opportunities, and they've all thrown the ball very, very well. So, it gives us the luxury of not having to stretch our starters out. If we feel like after 2 times through the order we need to turn it over to the bullpen, we can. We have enough guys down there that have done a good job for us up to this point. But, again, it's a small sample size. It's 17 games. We got a lot of season to go. But hopefully we can continue to do things that we've been doing, and we should be in good shape.
Monty, the guys who love the fancy stats and all these new age things like launch angle and exit velo, they're very, very much trying to change the game about trying to get the ball in the air, whereas your team's approach is more of an old school approach, very patient, valuing the walk. What is behind the fact that you guys seem to be a much different team than the new pedigree of baseball seems to be?
Well, we believe in there's old school philosophies in what we do, and there's some new school stuff that we do too. We do look at data. We do look at sabermetrics, but what we do is in my opinion is tried and true when it comes to scoring runs. One of the things that we put a high emphasis on is just simply scoring runs. How do you score runs? And it doesn't always happen via the hit. The single hardest thing to do in all sports is hit a baseball, hit a round ball with a round bat and hit it square. So it's very difficult to hit a baseball. So what we try to preach to our guys is strike zone discipline. We try to teach them their strengths in the strike zone and to focus on those strengths. So when they get a good pitch to hit, they're ready for it and lay off pitches outside of the strike zone. Now, when you do that, sometimes we take some borderline pitches that are strikes that, can lead to strikeouts and can lead to outs, but we also take advantage of the free pass. And when we walk and we hit balls in the gaps and hit balls out of the ballpark, oftentimes it's a crooked number, and about 90% of the time in a baseball game, if you put up a crooked number in one inning, you win the game. So it's a big deal for us. We try to accumulate as many base runners as we can, and hopefully someone hits the ball in a gap or out of the park, and we wind up scoring a bunch of runs.
And because of your consistent offense, how comfortable is that for your pitching staff to always be around the plate, because we see a lot of college pitchers, especially, really throw a lot of walks because they're afraid to make a pitch fine that their team can't catch up if the other team starts to hit them. So how comfortable is your pitching staff with having an offense they know that can be prolific at times?
Well, I think there's a number of factors involved in that. I think the first thing for us is we want to command the strike zone as an offense, and we want to command the strike zone as a pitching staff and on defense. If you look at our pitching numbers, we don't walk a lot of guys. We believe in pitching to contact. We believe the strength of our team is our defense. Right now I think we lead the league, and it's early, trust me, but we lead the league in defense right now. So we preach just execution of pitches and pitching down in the strike zone and getting ground balls and getting fly balls. If the ball stays in the ballpark, we got a good chance of making a play because our outfield defense has been very good. Our infield defense has been very good. So, we do everything we can to limit the free pass. I think in college baseball in general, if you watch college baseball, the teams that limit the free pass via walk, via error, via hit by pitch, via stolen base, if you do a good job of making your opposition earn every base, you're going to win a lot of college baseball games because, if you win the free 90 battle, the free 90 feet in a college baseball game, you're going to win more times than not. So that's just a big part of what we preach and what we teach and what we recruit to as well. I mean, you got to recruit guys to throw strikes. We believe in pitchability. We believe in making the routine play guys. We recruit a lot of shortstops. We like guys that can catch and throw the baseball, and we like guys that understand the strike zone and what pitches they can drive and what pitches they can't. And you feel like, you're going to have an on-base percentage that's over 400. That's a goal. You're going to have a pitching staff that throws strikes, and you're going to make plays.
Talking with Monty Lee, Clemson baseball coach. So Brett Kinnaman having a heck of a year, 408. He's got 10 homers. He's got 31 RBIs. Has struck out 14 times, but he's walked 13 times. So what kind of hitter is he besides just being a very good one? I mean, what is he strictly a power guy?
No, I don't think he's just a power guy. I've seen Kinnaman now, and this will be our third year seeing him, and I thought he was one of the better freshmen in our league 2 years ago. Kinnaman's he's one of those guys that when you are going to pitch to a guy like Kinnaman, you have to live on the thirds of the plate. There's 17 inches across that plate, and you're going to have to pitch when you come in. It's got to be to a third of the plate in, and it's got to be to the third of the plate away. If you miss anywhere in between that, on the outer half or on the inner half, he's going to get barrel on it, and he's going to get really good barrel on it. So the key for us is when we throw a strike to him, we have to pitch to the thirds of the plate inside and the third of the plate outside, and we're going to have to expand and hope that he chases it. And when we climb the ladder, we've got to get it above the belt, because if you leave it at the belt, it's going to leave the yard. So he's just a dangerous hitter. He's their Seth Beer, quite frankly. I mean, he's having a monster year. He's got 17 extra base hits out of 31. So, he's a guy that we've got to zero in on and do everything we can to be very careful with him. But he's not the only one. I mean, Edwards is hitting 375 with 5 homers. Debo's hitting 365. Cooper's hitting 349. Wilson's hitting 338. The list goes on. And they got 33 stolen bases. So this team can run too. So you got to be careful on both ends. You got to control the running game, and we got to keep the ball down and out of the middle of the plate. And if we can do that, we're going to give ourselves a chance.
Well, it should be a great weekend for baseball up there. You can go watch baseball early, watch basketball tomorrow night. We thank you, sir. Good luck this weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me on, as always.
You got it. Thank you. Monty Lee, coach of the Clemson Tigers. Big showdown series ACC-wise for them with NC State. Coming up on the top of the hour, should you lose us for whatever reason, of course, stay with us on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, on our YouTube channel, or the TuneIn app. Check out our Columbia affiliate, The Point Radio. You can stay with us there, and we're back in a moment.